Hello, this is Professor Scott Norman, and we have another installment of the Gorillas in the Midst of the Automotive Industry. Today we have Chad Friesen, a 2009 graduate from PSU. Chad, welcome to our show. Man, it seems like it was only just a few years ago, not 11 years ago that you were at PSU. Time is sure flying. That's for
It
sure.
has flown. It has.
So,
Thanks for having me.
oh, hey, man, I am glad to have you. You know, you were an outstanding student when you were at PSU. And so, I wanted to interview you because you've been in the business center in the regional offices your whole career after PSU. And you have a wealth of information to help share with maybe some future automotive students. Most high school students don't have any idea on what type of jobs are available in the automotive industry. They think about technicians, they think about engineers, they think about working at the plant, but they don't really ever think about working in, let's say, a business center or maybe what we call sometimes a zone office. And so we definitely want to hear your story about your experiences out in the field. But before we get to that, let's maybe go backwards a little bit, and let's maybe tell us where you're from. Maybe if you had any type of automotive experience during high school before you got to PSU. Let's start there.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm originally from Newton, Kansas, so just a little bit north of Wichita.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a Christian school outside of Newton, but I loved automotive stuff, and so I did take a course at Newton High School that was an auto tech class, and it just kind of helped solidify to me that I really wanted a job in the automotive industry and that it was something I would really enjoy. So took that, and through that kind of heard about Pittsburgh State and took a tour of the facility, and obviously was very impressed. And I've always been a big Chrysler and Mopar guy, and there was a lot of industry. There was a lot of people that had gone to FCA and Chrysler at the time from Pittsburgh State, so that really spoke to me, and that's why I chose Pittsburgh State, and obviously it got me to where I was hoping to be. So
yeah, I know it's kind of neat. You were a Mopar guy coming in, and obviously you have to tell everybody what type of Mopar you have.
Yeah, so I have a '69 Charger RT, and that was kind of what I was learning on through high school, wrenching on, and so still have it and still enjoying it.
And which engine?
It is a 440.
440, yeah. I know. Yeah. So, man,
yeah.
So he has a cool vehicle. Let's just put it that way. So
yeah.
He brought that into PSU, and it's like, oh my God, that thing is awesome. So being a Mopar guy, and going from high school, Mopar guy through PSU to go into work for Chrysler FCA right out of high school, a dream come true. That's for sure for you. Before we get to that career, though. Tell me which area you studied at PSU and maybe what type of experience you got. Was there any summer internships that you did or anything like that?
Yeah, so I was a service management emphasis, and so I took the service merchandising and the service management seminar. So when through the school years, I actually worked for the vice president of academic affairs, Steve Scott, who's now the president of the university, and that was actually a very good experience just to kind of get some background on how, a little bit how a corporate structure would work, right, with meetings and so forth. But in the summers, I would go back to Newton, and I worked at an independent repair facility. First of all, I started changing oil and doing tires and light maintenance. And then the next summer, I was a service advisor there and selling maintenance. Between my junior and my senior year, I actually had an internship for General Motors at their service quality group in Warren, Michigan. So I got to experience Detroit a little bit and experience corporate world a little bit again. And so, yeah, that was kind of my background, and it helped kind of shape my path with Chrysler, and I'm sure it helped just in terms of getting me in. So it was a great experience.
Yeah. Of course, everyone knows that I'm kind of a Chrysler guy myself, spending 14 years with them. So here you are in 2009, you get your dream job, to go work for, let me see, was it FCA back then or Chrysler back then?
It had just turned to FCA, yeah.
Just turned to FCA back then, got it, okay. And so tell me what you did as your first entry-level job into the automotive industry.
Yeah, so the country is separated into different, we'll call them business centers because that's what we call them, but zones. So there's 9 zones within the United States, and the Denver Business Center is where I went first. And I started as a district manager. I called on some smaller stores from a service and parts and a sales perspective. So vehicle sales and service and parts. Obviously, service and parts was something I was more interested in, but it was good to get the variable side of the business, the sales side, a little bit of background with that. So, and as a district manager, I mean, the job title, you know, it's tough to kind of explain all that goes into that, but you know, you're helping the dealers. You've got a number of dealers that you're calling on, and you're working with them through warranty concerns, customer relation concerns. But really, you know, the whole one of the best parts of it is really how do we instill processes? How do we work to develop retail process that will drive customer retention and drive additional parts sales or vehicle sales? So anyway. So I did that for 3 months in Denver, and then actually got moved to Wichita, Kansas, and
very close.
Yeah, very close to home. It was perfect.
Yeah.
So I had 3 years where I was the area manager for service and parts in Kansas, kind of the central to western Kansas region. And then, like I said, 3 years in, I went to Omaha, Nebraska, and I covered all of Nebraska, same type of job. Then after about 18 months or a year there, I went back to the business center in Denver, and I was the service and parts marketing manager. And so I helped develop the mail pieces and emails and website things to help drive customers to our dealers for business. And I did that for about 18 months. And then I got moved up to headquarters and kind of in a support role to the business centers. I would help them with, you know, how headquarters was working different initiatives to drive business or customer satisfaction, and really enjoyed that job and got to be able to kind of interact with both headquarters and the business centers. And that gave me a good framework, I think, for the future. I also got to spend a little bit of time. It was a tough time with recalls. So I did a lot of recall stuff, did a lot of Takata airbag things. I mean, just a lot of initiatives with recalls, which is kind of the new norm in the industry. So I was up at headquarters for almost 3 years, and now I'm back into a different zone office or a different business center in the Great Lakes region. So that's Michigan, Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. And I manage 20 area managers who have, you know, who cover about 300 dealers. So it's kind of been a little bit of full circle. I, you know, spent some time at headquarters, and now I'm working with, you know, setting priorities for my team and just, you know, supporting the dealers in this region. So that's kind of the brief high-level overview.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm just thinking, you know, 10 years out and you're already, I'm going to call it middle management of Chrysler is kind of what it seems like. Now in the business center, what would be the next level at let's say your business center? Before, I know that they used to have like a zone manager, I would call him, the guy who's the big boss of the whole entire thing. So I'm just kind of maybe like a framework for myself.
Yeah. So business centers have a sales side and a service and parts side. And then they also, a small team is a network team, which is network team just kind of helps put dealers in business and, you know, buy sales and things like that. But on the sales side, there is a business center director, and that's the top level. And there's a number of people on the sales side that, you know, are middle management or senior management. On the service and parts side, there's a senior manager, and then there's me, and then there's a warranty manager, there's a customer relations manager, and there's a marketing manager. So those are kind of the roles on the service and parts side. So.
Okay. So then what would be the next step in your career? Let's say you do this job for a few years, you're ready to move on. What would be something that you would like to do?
Yeah, so obviously I can move up a step to be the senior manager on the service and parts side. Or there's lots of opportunities at headquarters too to, you know, run a portfolio of parts, like a collision portfolio or a, you know, retail portfolio. So there's lots of opportunities, and that's one of the beauties of a corporation. You know, there's obviously some drawbacks and there's some positive things, but the positive things are really that, you know, there's lots of different opportunities, and you know, you just got to kind of be willing to try them out and go for it. So
Well, that's cool. That really is. I tell my students, our students start out, sweeping the broom, changing oil, changing tires as their entry level job. But if they wanted to, and they're lucky, and they're in the right career path, they could go all the way up to running a big corporation like Chrysler or GM or something like that. So I guess we could say, hey, we knew Chad when he was only at the business centers, and now here he is running a big monster corporation someday. So.
I won't get to that level.
Yeah, I understand. Somebody has to. So
somebody does, and I'm okay if it's not me.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I remember saying when I was a high school student, I want to run Chrysler Corporation. Well, once I got in there, I was like, no, I like the technical side much better than the business side. It was a lot more fun dealing with vehicles versus people, we'll say.
Yeah.
So what about some advice you could give to that high school student from Newton, Kansas, thinking about maybe a career in automotive technology, not quite sure? What type of advice can you give them so they're as successful as what you are?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things that I would say, and that is, take advantage of every opportunity that you have. And the second piece would be to keep an open mind. So I'll kind of explain that. I think, number one, take every advantage. Pitt State, and I've been to some of the competitive schools. Pitt State does a phenomenal job of putting industry people right there to interview and to provide information. And it's really, one of those things you got to take advantage of the informational sessions and the automotive orientation days that you have, because really the corporations know that Pitt State puts out a great student and gives a great background. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities there. And even from a work perspective, like you mentioned, most companies, corporations, and dealerships are looking for people who have some experience in the automotive industry. So even if it's being a porter and, cleaning cars and, taking them to customers' homes, all that stuff really helps build your resume and helps give you a framework for understanding the business. As far as keeping an open mind, I think this goes across many different ways. I know that when I came out of Pitt State, I was like, hey, I really love the technical side of things, and I still do. But in my job, I'm not really doing much technical. But I love what I do because it's connected to the car, right? It's dealership processes that I get to be involved in that is really enjoyable to me. And so I can wrench on the side at home, which is great, but then I can go to work and I still enjoy my work. And I think sometimes maybe you get kind of, focused, tunnel visioned on these are the things that I want to do. And maybe you miss out, on some other opportunity, and you never know where God's going to take you and what's going to happen. So I think keeping an open mind is important. And I think one of the other things too is, I'm an example. I went into the corporation world, but quite honestly, there are a lot of opportunities that are maybe even better than what I have, from a technician standpoint even. Yep. One of the challenges that we have as an industry is just the number of technicians that are out there. And so there are technicians, making well into the six figures, and it's obviously not about the money, but they can make lots of money, and there is no shame in doing that work because there's a real need for it. And I know dealerships that would take 10 more technicians, so even for the parents out there, I think it's key to just know that technicians are a real need, and they're a real opportunity if you don't want to do the corporate thing and if you don't want to move around a lot, so.
Yeah. What I like about that is that once you have that skill of being able to have automotive technology, you could do that anywhere in the world, and you have that skill forever. So, if I get fed up with, let's say, the president or my dean or my boss, hey, I'm going to work on cars in my garage, or go to a Chrysler dealership and try to get a job as a technician, Right. And so you have this skill set that you could just use forever, and you could do it anywhere in the world. I could do it in Newton, Kansas. I could do it in Pittsburgh, Kansas. I could do it in St. Charles, Missouri. If I want to live in St. Charles, Missouri and work for Chrysler, well, that's probably not going to be part of the cards, right? And so there are benefits on that, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so I do have one last question for you. So can you get 3 car seats in the back of a Hellcat?
I've not tried in a Hellcat. I don't know. There's probably not enough latch systems there. You can in a '69 Charger, but no, I don't know about a Hellcat.
I was wondering if you had 2 or 3 of them in your garage. That's why I was just wondering. So
no, I got no Hellcat.
oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Chad, thank you very much. It's been a fantastic talk. I love doing these interviews where I get caught up on my students and seeing what type of exciting things you guys are doing out in the industry. So, you're making us proud. That's for sure. Thank you very much for your time. And
well, thank you very much. And Pitt State's a great place. That's the last thing I'll say.
Thank you very much. You have a good evening. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Goodbye.